Welcome back to Personal Trip. History has known many conquerors, but few have risen from the status of a fugitive to the ruler of the entire world. Today, we step into the life of the man known in the West as Tamerlane, and in the East as Sahib Kiran, the Lord of the Fortunate Conjunction. From the steppes of Central Asia to the gates of Europe, Amir Temur built an empire that revived the Silk Road and birthed a golden age of science and architecture. He never lost a single battle in 35 years of constant warfare. But who was the man behind the sword? Was he a ruthless destroyer or the greatest intellectual and builder of his millennium? Today, we explore 40 deep dive facts about Amir Temur that will change everything you thought you knew about history. Before we begin this journey into the heart of the Timurid Empire, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to preserve these epic stories. Now, let us ride back to the 14th century. The 40 deep dive facts. 1. The birth of a star. Amir Temur was born on April 9, 1336, in the village of Hoja Ilgar, near Shahrizbaz, modern-day Uzbekistan. According to the Zafarnama, at the moment of his birth, his hands were found to be filled with clotted blood, a sign interpreted by seers that he would one day hold the world in his grasp. His father, Amir Taragai, was a leader of the Barlas tribe and a deeply pious man who took his son to a local Sufi saint. The saint looked at the child and predicted he would be a lord of the age. This spiritual foundation defined Temur's entire life. He believed his destiny was written by God. 2. Forged in fire, the legend of the lame. During his 20s, Temur lived as a fugitive and a mercenary. During a skirmish in the Sistan region, Iran, he was struck by 2 arrows, one in his right hand and one in his right leg. These injuries caused him permanent lameness and paralyzed 2 fingers. While Europeans mockingly called him Tamerlane, Temur himself wore these scars as badges of honor. He trained his left hand to be as lethal as his right and proved that physical disability cannot stop a man with an iron will. He didn't just survive, he became the most dangerous warrior on the planet. 3. Strategic and intellectual, the Grand Master of Chess. Temur was a genius who found ordinary life too simple. He was an obsessed chess player, but he found the standard 8x8 board insufficient for his strategic mind. He invented Tamerlane chess, played on a 10x11 board with 110 squares and new pieces like giraffes, camels, and scouts. He often told his generals that if a man cannot manage a chessboard, he cannot manage an empire. For Temur, war was simply a larger version of chess, where the world was his board. 4. The disciple and the mentor. Despite his immense power, Temur was a humble student of religion. His spiritual guide was Mir Said Bereke, a descendant of the Prophet. Throughout his life, Temur never made a major decision without seeking the blessing of his mentor. When Temur died, his final wish was to be buried at the feet of Mir Said Bereke in the Gure Amir in Samarkand. This balance between being a terrifying conqueror and a humble believer is one of the greatest paradoxes of his character. 5. Visionary and bold, Samarkand, the center of the world. Temur's heart belonged to Samarkand. He vowed to make it the most beautiful city in human history. He forcibly moved the best architects, weavers, painters, and scientists from every city he conquered to his capital. To show the world that Samarkand was superior to all other capitals, he named the surrounding villages Baghdad, Cairo, Shiraz, and even Paris. He wanted people to travel from Paris to Samarkand to realize that his capital was the true paradise on earth. 6. Action-oriented and genius. The inferno of the Delhi elephants. In 1398, Timur reached Delhi, facing 120 massive war elephants armored with chainmail and poison-tipped tusks. His soldiers were terrified. Timur ordered his men to dig deep trenches and then executed a brilliant, desperate plan. He loaded camels with dry hay, set them on fire, and charged them toward the elephants. The panicked elephants turned back and trampled the Sultan's own army. Timur took the city in a single day, proving that psychological warfare is more powerful than any weapon. 7. Administrative and just. The Tuzuk-i-Timuri, the institutes. Timur was not just a destroyer, he was a master administrator. He wrote the Tuzuk-i-Timuri, a complete guide on how to rule a country. He famously said, "Power is in justice." He created a system of state-sponsored intelligence where couriers traveled thousands of miles to bring him news of the common people's suffering. He punished corrupt governors with death, ensuring that a merchant could carry gold across his empire without fear of robbery. 8. Tense and tactical. The Iron Gates and the Battle of Ankara. In 1402, Timur faced the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid the Thunderbolt at Ankara. Bayezid was considered the greatest general in Europe, having crushed the Crusaders. Timur didn't attack immediately. He used his engineers to divert the water supply of the Ottoman army, forcing them to fight while dehydrated and exhausted. Timur shattered the Ottoman army and captured the Sultan, an event that delayed the fall of Constantinople for 50 years and saved Europe from Ottoman expansion. 9. Cold and strategic. The Wall of the North, crushing the Golden Horde. Timur's most persistent rival was Toktamish of the Golden Horde. In a brutal winter campaign across the Russian steppes, Timur marched his army through frozen landscapes where they had to eat raw meat to survive. He didn't just defeat the Golden Horde, he destroyed their trade cities, effectively shifting the Silk Road trade south to Samarkand and allowing the small principality of Moscow to eventually rise and become Russia. 10. Awe-inspiring master of languages and history. Timur was a polyglot. He spoke Turkic and Persian fluently and was well-versed in history. He spent his nights in his tent listening to scholars read the histories of past prophets and kings. He would often debate with the famous historian Ibn Khaldun in Damascus, who described Timur as one of the greatest and most intelligent men in the world. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a walking library. 11. Scientific and great. The patron of astronomy. Under Timur's patronage, Samarkand became a global center for science. He laid the foundation for what his grandson Ulugh Beg would eventually perfect, the most advanced observatory in the world. Timur believed that a king's duty was to understand the stars as much as the earth. This era is now known as the Timurid Renaissance, a period that influenced the European Renaissance. 12. Extreme and harsh. The siege of the vertical fortress. Facing a fortress in Persia built on a sheer cliff where birds could barely reach, Timur's engineers built massive wooden platforms suspended by ropes to attack the defenders from above. He never accepted the word impossible. If a city was on a mountain, he built a road. If it was on a river, he built a bridge. His engineering corps was the most advanced of the Middle Ages. 13. Cultural and soft. The love for blue. Have you ever wondered why Samarkand is famous for its blue domes? Timur brought the secret of cobalt blue tiling from Persia. He wanted his buildings to match the color of the sky so that they would never look old or faded. To this day, the Timurid blue remains a symbol of Central Asian architecture. 14. Diplomatic and wise. The letter to King Charles of France. Timur was an international diplomat. He sent letters to the King of France, Charles VI, and the King of England, Henry IV, proposing trade alliances and friendship. He saw himself as a global leader who wanted to connect the East with the West through the Silk Road. The European kings, fearing the Ottomans, looked at Timur as their secret protector. 15. Grave and tragic. The curse of the Gur-e-Amir. Timur died in 1405 during his final campaign to China. Legend says his tomb was cursed with the inscription, "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble." In 1941, Soviet scientists opened his tomb. 2 days later, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union. When they reburied him with Islamic rites in 1942, the Soviets won the Battle of Stalingrad. Coincidence or fate, the legend of Timur continues to haunt history. 16. Tactical. The secret weapon. The mounted archers. Timur's army was the fastest in history. Every soldier had at least 2 horses. His mounted archers could shoot arrows with lethal accuracy while riding at full gallop. They could travel 100 miles in a day, appearing like ghosts behind enemy lines. This mobility was why no infantry army in the world could stand against him. 17. Honorable. The respect for scholars. Even in the middle of a brutal siege, Timur would send messengers into the city to find the homes of scientists, artists, and religious leaders. He would place guards at their doors to ensure they were not harmed during the conquest. He believed that while empires fall, knowledge must be preserved. 18. Strategic. The false retreat. Like Genghis Khan, Timur mastered the feigned retreat. He would pretend to flee, leading the enemy into a trap where his hidden cavalry would surround and annihilate them. He used this at the Battle of the Terek River to destroy the Golden Horde's elite forces. 19. Economic. The Silk Road revival. Timur understood that gold is more powerful than steel. He spent his reign protecting the Silk Road, building caravanserais, ancient hotels, every 30 miles so that traders could travel safely. He turned the Timurid Empire into the world's largest marketplace, making Samarkand the richest city on the planet. 20. Symbolic. The 3 circles. Timur's personal seal was 3 circles forming a triangle. It symbolized his rule over the 3 parts of the world, Asia, Europe, and Africa. He wore this symbol on his ring as a constant reminder of his global ambition. 21. Strategic. The master of the Caspian Navy. While mostly known as a Lord of the Steppes, Timur understood that total dominance required controlling the seas. In order to secure the trade routes between Persia, the Caucasus, and the Golden Horde, he ordered the construction of a fleet of ships on the Caspian Sea. This was an unprecedented move for a Central Asian conqueror. He used these ships not just for war, but as a floating logistics chain, ensuring that his army was always supplied with grain and weapons from the northern coasts. He proved that his strategic vision wasn't limited by land. Wherever there was water or earth, he sought to control it. 22. Inspiring. The miracle at the Irtysh River. During his campaign against the Golden Horde, Timur's army reached the Irtysh River in the dead of a Siberian winter. The soldiers were exhausted, starving, and terrified of the freezing depths. Many thought the campaign was over. Timur didn't just give orders from the back. He rode to the front, gave a legendary speech about the glory of God and the courage of the Turkic warrior, and was the first to plunge his horse into the icy current. Seeing their leader risk his life, the entire army of 200,000 men followed him, singing battle hymns. This moment turned a potential retreat into one of the most daring river crossings in military history. 23. Engineering. The floating highways of the Oxus. The Amu Darya, or Oxus, is one of the most unpredictable and widest rivers in Asia, but to Timur, it was just another obstacle. His specialized corps of engineers developed a system of mobile boat bridges. They would bind hundreds of large wooden boats together with iron chains and lay massive cedar planks across them. Within 48 hours, a bridge capable of supporting heavy siege engines, thousands of horses and supply wagons was ready. This allowed Timur to strike enemies who thought they were safe behind the river's natural barrier. He changed the geography of war itself. 24. Psychological. The thunder of the cornai and drums. Timur was a master of sonic warfare. He didn't just want the enemy to see him, he wanted them to feel his arrival. He used massive bronze drums, called nagora, and long trumpets, known as cornai, carried on the backs of his largest elephants. Before the battle began, he would order a synchronized war symphony. The sound was so deep and vibrating that it caused physical tremors in the enemy soldiers and panic to their horses. He knew that the battle is won in the mind before it is won on the field. The sounds of Timur's drums meant that death was already at the door. 25. Diplomatic. The protector of the Silk Road Christians. Timur's empire was a melting pot of religions. In his letters to King Charles VI of France and the Archbishop of Genoa, he made a historic promise. In my lands, Christian merchants and travelers shall be treated with the same honor as my own people. Globally, he granted them special tax exemptions and provided them with armed escorts through dangerous territories. Analytically, this wasn't just kindness, it was a brilliant economic strategy. He knew that by protecting foreign Christians, he could control the flow of European gold into Samarkand, making his capital the economic heart of the planet. 26. The doctrine of scorched earth. When facing an overwhelming force or preparing for a long siege, Timur practiced a ruthless defensive strategy. He would order the complete destruction of everything behind his retreating lines. Wells were poisoned, crops were burned, and granaries were emptied. This left the pursuing enemy to march into a silent, lifeless wasteland. While it was a brutal tactic, it ensured that no army could survive long enough to reach the walls of Samarkand. He turned the vastness of Central Asia into a graveyard for his enemies. 27. The first global census. Timur was a medical data-driven ruler long before the modern age. He ordered a meticulous census of every city, village, and nomadic tribe in his empire. He demanded to know not just the number of people, but the number of blacksmiths, horses, scholars, and even the amount of grain stored in every basement. This master ledger allowed him to calculate exactly how much his empire could produce and how many men he could draft for a campaign within days. Information was his most lethal weapon. He knew the strength of his empire down to the last horseshoe. 28. The Council of Sarai Mulk Khanum. Behind every great man is a great woman, and for Timur, that was his chief wife, Sarai Mulk Khanum, also known as Bibi Khanum. She was a descendant of Genghis Khan, which gave Timur the political legitimacy he needed. But she was more than a symbol. She was a brilliant political advisor who managed the empire's affairs while Timur was away for years on campaigns. Timur's deep love for her led to the construction of the Bibi Khanum Mosque, once the largest and most magnificent mosque in the Islamic world, built as a testament to their partnership. 29. The Fire of the East, naphtha warfare. Timur's army was at the cutting edge of chemical warfare in the 14th century. He employed units of fire throwers who used naft or naphtha in ceramic grenades and primitive flamethrowers. During the siege of Smyrna, he used these fire pots to burn down the unburnable wooden fortifications of the Knights Hospitalier. He also utilized early rockets and cannons, integrating Chinese and Persian technology to ensure that no fortress, no matter how thick its walls, could resist his artillery for long. 30. Cultural. The father of the Chagatai Renaissance. Timur recognized the power of language as a tool of national identity. While Persian was the language of the court, he elevated the Turkic Chagatai language to new heights. He encouraged poets, historians, and scientists to write in their native tongue. This cultural shift laid the groundwork for the later Timurid Renaissance, which produced figures like Alisher Navori. Timur wanted his people to have their own voice, distinct from the Persians and Mongols, creating a unique Turco-Islamic civilization. 31. The Green Revolution. Irrigation systems. Timur's legacy wasn't just stone and blood, it was water. He spent vast sums of his war spoils to build massive canal systems like the Barlas Canal, which turned the dry plains of Mugan and the Zarafshan Valley into lush, fertile gardens. He brought hydraulic engineers from Iraq and India to design sophisticated water-sharing systems. He believed that a ruler's greatness was measured by how many deserts he could turn green. To this day, parts of Uzbekistan's agriculture still rely on the foundations laid by Timur. 32. The Feast of the Century, 1404. To celebrate his victories over the Ottomans and the Golden Horde, Timur held a great Kurultai in the meadows of Kanigil. Envoys from as far as Spain, France, and China attended. Hundreds of pavilions made of silk and gold thread were erected. Fountains ran with fruit juice instead of water, and thousands of roasted sheep were served on silver platters. It was a display of wealth so immense that the Spanish envoy Clavijo wrote that the world had never seen such a collection of riches in one place. It was Timur's way of saying, "I am the king of the world." 33. Survival in the Sistan Desert. Early in his career, before he was a king, Timur and a handful of loyal followers were hunted like animals in the Sistan Desert. They went for 3 days without a single drop of water, their horses dying of thirst. Timur famously cut his own arm to let his favorite horse drink his blood to keep it alive. This period of extreme suffering forged his character. He learned that the desert doesn't forgive weakness, and he used that hard-earned endurance to later lead his armies through landscapes that would kill any other general. 34. The Dervish Spy Network. Timur's intelligence agency was the most sophisticated of the Middle Ages. He recruited thousands of wandering Sufi dervishes, merchants, and even beggars to act as his eyes and ears. These spies would infiltrate an enemy city months before Timur arrived, mapping the granaries, counting the guards, and identifying which officials were unhappy with their ruler. By the time Timur's army appeared on the horizon, he already knew exactly where to strike to make the city collapse from within. 35. The Covenant with the Humble. Timur had a red and white policy for cities. If a city opened its gates and welcomed his scholars, he would grant them a charter of protection, lowering their taxes and investing in their local markets. He only turned to brutality when a city broke its oath or killed his ambassadors. He saw himself as a scourge of God, sent to punish the unjust, but as a shadow of God, meant to protect the humble and the hard-working. His justice was swift, but it was predictable. 36. Architectural. The Aksaray, the White Palace. In his birthplace of Shahrisabz, Timur built the Aksaray, a palace so massive that its entrance arch was 70 meters high. The tiles were decorated with real gold and lapis lazuli. On the top of the palace, there was a pool of water with a waterfall that cooled the air for the entire courtyard. The inscription above the gate remains one of history's most arrogant and true statements. If you doubt our greatness, look at our buildings. Even the ruins today make modern buildings look small. 37. Global macroeconomics of the Silk Road. Timur was the first ruler to understand the concept of global trade monopoly. By destroying the northern Silk Road cities of the Golden Horde, like Sarai, he forced all global trade between Europe and China to pass through his cities, Samarkand and Herat. This made him the middleman of the world's economy. Every gram of silk and every ounce of spice paid a tax to Timur. He used war not just for land, but to control the flow of the world's wealth into his treasury. 38. The emotion of the Gur-e-Amir. Despite his image as a man of iron, Timur was deeply impacted by the loss of his children. When his eldest son Jahangir died, Timur wept openly for days. His most famous architectural work, the Gur-e-Amir, was originally built as a mausoleum for his favorite grandson, Muhammad Sultan. Timur spent his final years visiting the tombs of his family, showing that even the man who conquered the world could not conquer the grief of a father's heart. 39. The Epic March, China, 1405. At the age of 69, an age where most men were long dead or retired, Timur launched his most ambitious campaign yet, the conquest of the Ming dynasty in China. He led an army of 200,000 men into a blizzard-ridden winter. He believed that China was the final piece of the puzzle to recreate the empire of Genghis Khan. Tragically, he died of fever in the city of Otrar before reaching the border. His last words were an order to his generals to keep moving forward, showing that his ambition was larger than life itself. 40. Philosophical. The legacy of the Sahib Kiran. Amir Timur left a legacy that didn't die with him. His descendants, the Timurids, created the Mughal Empire in India, Babur, built the Taj Mahal, Shah Jahan, and led a scientific revolution in Samarkand, Ulugh Beg. He proved that a single individual, through sheer will, intellect, and faith, could shift the axis of human history. He remains the eternal Sahib Kiran, the Lord of the Fortunate Conjunction, a title given to a ruler whose influence transcends time and geography. Amir Timur was not merely a conqueror of lands, he was a conqueror of time. He rose from a humble background to build an empire that stretched across continents, leaving behind a legacy of architectural wonders and scientific progress that still defines Central Asia today. His life serves as a powerful testament to the human spirit, that with an iron will, a strategic mind, and unshakable faith, no obstacle is too great to overcome. Whether as the legendary Sahib Kiran or the terrifying Tamerlane, his name is forever etched into the foundations of world history. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these 40 facts about Amir Timur surprised you the most? Do you see him as a ruthless strategist or a visionary builder of civilizations? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of one of history's greatest leaders, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Personal Trip. We are dedicated to bringing the epic stories of our ancestors to life for a global audience. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next journey through the corridors of time. Until then, keep seeking the truth behind the legends.